Hello World example in JavaScript, and I'll teach you how to include JavaScript code both inside a HTML document and on external files. We're going to start by opening up our code editor. I'll be using Sublime Text, but feel free to use whichever code editor you prefer. Let's create a new document and save it as index.html. I'll be working throughout this course in different folders for each one of the lessons. Feel free to use that folder structure or any folder structure that suits you the best. And remember that you can download all the source code of this course. Now, let's open this index.html file in our web browser. I'll be using Chromium, which is the open source version of Google Chrome and works in the exact same way. You can use any web browser that you want for this course as long as it's a current web browser, but I'll be focusing on Chrome. So I'm going to open this up in Chromium and we are going to type in some basic HTML code. So I'm going to start by typing in the opening a HTML tag, and in Sublime Text you can auto close the tags by pressing Alt and the dot character. So I'm adding in a head and a body, and inside the body I'm just going to type in hello. Let's refresh the page so we can see this, and there we go. Now, what happens if I just type in JavaScript code here? Well, the browser is going to think that it's text. Let's give it a go. I'm going to type in the code to show a message box that says hello world. Don't worry about the specifics of the code that I'm entering, but just follow along what I'm trying to show you. So I'm going to type in alert hello world, which is the code to render a message box that says hello world. But as you can see, if I refresh this page, this is being shown as text. Now, how can we make the browser execute or run this line of code instead of just treating it as text? We can't just tell it, hey browser, please, this is not text, treat it as JavaScript code. But what we can do is use the script tag. This is where the script tag comes into play. So by using the script tag, you can enter JavaScript code in your HTML documents. Everything that I type inside of the script tag is treated as JavaScript code. And as you'll see, most code editors will highlight the syntax of your JavaScript code. Let's reload the page again and see what happens now. See how now I get the hello world message on my message box, just like we wanted. Now, writing code inside of a HTML document, like what we're doing here, is fine. But what if you wanted to include the same JavaScript code in multiple HTML files, or simply keep it more organized? Imagine that this is not one line, but 100 lines of code, and we want to have that in multiple documents. Well, the best way to do that is by creating an external JavaScript file, which will have the file extension .js. And in that file, you put your JavaScript code, and then you include that file inside of your HTML documents. So let's create a new file and save it as script.js. We're going to cut and paste the JavaScript code inside of this new file and save. And I'm going to get rid of this extra line, and I'm going to keep the script tag. I'll be adding an attribute here called source, src, and then double quotes, and then I can specify the name of that external file. So if I reload the page now, you'll see that it works in the exact same way, because we're basically including the code of this external file into the HTML document. So if you had multiple HTML files and you wanted to include the same file in all of them, you'd simply need to copy this and put it in all of the files, instead of having to copy, 1,000 lines of code eventually into each one of them. Now, as you can see, both files are on the same folder. But what happens if I had another folder here, for instance, called JS, and this script file was inside of that folder? How can we include it in that case? Well, let's reload the page to see what happens. I haven't included it, so you'll see that nothing happens. Now, how can we include it? That's very simple. All you have to do is add the path to the location of that file in here. So in this case, the folder is called JS, so I will type in JS and then / and the name of the file. And now it will work. And you do it in this way in all operating systems, so in Windows as well. So to summarize what we've done in this lesson, we've introduced the script tag, which is used to include JavaScript code both inside of a HTML document and to load it from external files. So now you also know how to include JavaScript code from external files. And we've also looked at the case where the two files are not in the same folder,